Very good evening and welcome to the round table where we are discussing Mandela leadership philosophies in modern times. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our high-level panel this evening. Tokyo Sekgwale, former Minister and Premier of Gauteng. Of course, he's also a renowned businessman, anti-apartheid activist, and he spent considerable time in prison with Mandela. Selo Hatang, who is CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Kone Gugushe, who is CEO of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. Bonang Mohale, who is Chancellor of the University of the Orange Free State. He's chairman of the Bidvest Group, and he's the former CEO of Business Leadership South Africa. We're also joined by Yolanda Kuba, who is the Vice President of the Southern and East Africa region, MTN, and of course she is also the founder of the Mentorship Boardroom. Thank you all for joining us for 67 minutes on the round table. Tokyo, I'm going to start with you and get a sense of what you think right now is the most pertinent of Nelson Mandela's philosophies on leadership when it comes to navigating South Africa through the current climate.
Well, thank you very, very much. Let me first congratulate our dear young girl here, Yolanda, for this wonderful initiative together with the members of your boardroom. We live in very difficult times, and today being Nelson Mandela's birthday, when 67 minutes have been spent, and thanks, we spent our time this afternoon with our own mentees. But the sad story is that the headlines of the Sunday Times today, the country is broken. And what is broken is the spirit of Nelson Mandela. But we're here. We've got to stand up and get moving on. What is the leadership philosophy of Nelson Mandela? And why does it apply in modern times? Madiba's style of leadership and the values that are contained therein is evergreen. It's ancient in as much as it's of today. It also applies for the future. It is a leadership underpinned by the most important thing. I've stayed with him for a long time, did all sorts of things, but I think one word that I'd put around Mandela at this moment is justice. Mandela is a man of justice, a good force for change. And his leadership is rooted within values and certain morality, ethics, certain basic principles. The sense of doing right for your fellow men is what Nelson Mandela stands for. But there are four things I would like to point out about him. The sense of balance in leadership. You'll all hear Madiba speaking, and he would use the word like, he say something and then add the word but. After that but, say something else. Madiba will add another longer word, which is however. He'll say something and he'll add nevertheless. Another word he would add is notwithstanding. But there's a phrase that he adds, a phrase he will say, having said that. Now that's where he strikes the balance. So he's not a demagogue, somebody who just make a one-way statement. There's always a sense of justice, sense of balance, a sense of creativity to provide a fairness in leadership and to be able to direct people. So he'll say something, Thabo Mbeki this, at the same time he'll say, notwithstanding. Jacob Zuma this, notwithstanding, or however, that type of thing. So this is a leadership that is based on justice, on fairness, on courage, and on certain principles, values, and ethics. We'll talk about these things as we go forward, but that's what I find in this type of, and it's evergreen, because it applies in the past in as much as it applies today.
So Bonang, Tokyo there speaking of fairness, of balance, and of course it was Desmond Tutu who famously said that Mandela is a global icon of forgiveness and reconciliation. I think it's pertinent to come to you at that point and get you to weigh in at this juncture.
Bronwyn, thank you very much. The one value that I really want to highlight and celebrate is the one of social justice. Former President Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela would tell us that the greatest injustice is exclusion. he would be very worried because he was a very contextual type of leader. He was very current. He was very agile. You'd read the Sunday Times and see Adrian Gore has made so much profit for this month. Pick up the phone and say, we need a school in Kunu or in another village. That's how responsive he was. So for me, as I conclude, Bronwyn, you'd be worried that there are some people within the ANC now called the Dirty Dozen, who have attempted an insurrection and economic sabotage that is premised on ethno-tribalism, the intersectionality with this notion of absolute rampant criminality, because that's what this is. It's thieves. And then lastly, of course, there'll be genuine desperation by our people. And that desperation is understandable because we have just been buffeted on all sides. 9 wasted years of state capture. We were already in a recession. Moody's downgraded us to below investment grade. And when the pandemic hit us, we're already prostate, face down, and absolutely finished. There are very few countries in the world that can survive those 4. Now we have cut our nose. To spite our face, we have now introduced looting.
So tough times in South Africa, Silo, but if we go to Nelson Mandela and when he created the Elders in 2007, when he said that we must speak truth to power, we give a voice to the voiceless. I want you, Silo, to pick up there as CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation and weigh in on the philosophies you want to bring to the fore right now.
Thank you very much, Bronwyn, and thank you so much to my elders on this platform. I think for me, I want to reflect on 2 and maybe start off where you were leading us in terms of how Madiba would want people not to be excluded. There was a sense, there's always a sense that we need to think of those who feel that democracy left them behind. Who feel that democracy is not serving them anymore because it's a violent democracy, violent to a child who has to be thrown over the balcony of a raging fire by a mother desperately trying to save their life. And I think it's at a time like this that I want to reflect on 2 of those values. One is pain is painful, but it shouldn't paralyze you. I remember days when Punta Desekhwale will tell you how Mr. K, Ahmed Kathrada, told us how after Madiba lost his son, he was in pain, but he didn't let him paralyze him to lose focus on what's important, what's the goal that we need to achieve. The second one is on hope. Bishop Mpumlwana calls Madiba the ancestor of hope. It's at a time like this that all of us must then be thinking, how would Madiba have reacted at a time like this? Yes, he would have been decisive in terms of going to the ground to call it to stop and to call for peace. We reminded of a moment when we lost one of our leaders to a bullet from a Polish. And it was at that time that Madiba thought, stop it. So I think it was an ancestor of hope that we must not lose sight of hope that can deliver to those who just are about to lose hope.
Silo brings to visibility that picture of the young toddler that was thrown from the balcony to escape the fire, and the story ended well. She was saved by the crowd. The appropriate point to bring you in here, Kone, as CEO of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, and how that situation would have actually really, really empowered Madiba to stand forward and potentially just unify the nation from there, taking that moment in time, which is so close to his heart, to the children that we know that he put at the center of everything.
Yes, thank you, Bronwyn. And really, one of the philosophies that I certainly want to bring in is Madiba, the champion for children. And, when Tokyo was talking about balance, Madiba was someone who wanted to hear diverse voices, and especially to make sure that the voices of children were not left behind. Yes. A lot of times we think that children should not be part of the things that adults are dealing with, but Madiba was very mindful to make sure that children were always brought in and their voices were heard. They have something to say, as people that really are the future of this nation. And really making sure that not only do we give them the voice, but we also give them opportunities, equal opportunities to all. And this is really what shapes someone, regardless of where they come from, into the great leader that he himself was. And the second thing that I also want to touch on is courage. Courage, being able to, in the face of very difficult circumstance, make decisions that may not always be popular, but will be for the benefit of the greater good. And being able to admit when you are not correct, being able to admit when you've made a mistake, and being able to change course. Madiba was not someone that was dogmatic like that, always sticking to one course of action, because he was a constant learner, learning from the environment around him, learning from examples of other countries and other leaders around him, and being able to change course where it's going to lead and benefit people around him.
So Turkey, I see you want to come in there, but I do just want to come to Yolanda, and then I'm going to pass the baton back to you. And Yolanda, Turkey at the beginning spent a minute or two congratulating you on the initiative on the Mentorship Boardroom, of which you are the founder, and of course alluded to the 67 mentors and mentees that have been matched in the Mentorship Boardroom, and that process has been ongoing throughout today. So let's talk to that aspiration of yours to take mentorship further, to really build the country in terms of collaborating, in terms of sharing knowledge. And I do want to bring in a quote, because I've seen you putting this quote out today, Yolanda, extensively, and Ade Odutula just reminds us, he's saying greetings from the US. He's following us here on the platform, and he said, it's so happy to be here with you all on Mandela Day. What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead. Nelson Mandela, 1918 to 2013. Yolanda, you've had that message out and that quote out throughout the day.
Yes, thanks, Bronwyn. I mean, I guess if I stand back a little bit, I have to actually say, Madiba actually inspired all of us in different ways, but definitely inspired all of us. And there's a reason that he did. And a lot of it was actually articulated already by my fellow panelists. But for myself, I mean, it was really, I only met Madiba much later in life through Tokyo. And basically, there were three main characteristics that I would like to highlight about Madiba that really actually also pushed me into action. The first one was his selflessness and empathy. And this is something I got to experience firsthand with him in the room and how he dealt with others. The second one is around him being a contextual and empowering leader. And in that regard, again, I spent a lot of time with Tokyo, and I used to, when I talk to my friends, I used to say, Tokyo is a mini Madiba, and I shouldn't say this on these kind of platforms, right? I'll get into trouble. But and I learned through really my own mentor that mentored him how he was like as well. And the third thing was his bravery, courage, and sense of resolution or resoluteness. And for me, if I look at kind of what kind of leaders do we need today, those are the kind of things that we need to have, and in abundance. We live in a very unjust world where if you look at just some of the simple stats, you cannot help but cringe that in Africa today, 2 out of 3 children are born and grow up in multi-dimensional poverty. If you think about if the kids are 2 out of 3 kids are actually growing up in multi-dimensional poverty, it means that they don't have adequate or they have substandard education, health, housing, protection, and so on, water, sanitization, and all those things. And we cannot live and be okay in a world like that. And that's what, for me, Madiba has come to represent, is that we should never tolerate injustice that we see in the world.
So how do we make sure, Turkey, that his legacy lives on? And of course, Yolanda there talking to three elements that she really wants to bring to the fore. And perhaps we got to that bravery, the courage, the resoluteness, the last of those elements that Yolanda spoke about. This is what we need right now in South Africa. And I'm going to ask you to tackle that head on, sir.
Well, it's a very important question, Bronwyn, and also thanks to you for putting us together here. It's a very nice panel here, very powerful people that, but I feel I'm older than all of them, you see. Sorry, I wanted to say younger than all of them, particularly that Bonang here. Let me say the following. And I appreciated the manner in which the other speakers came, quite clear on children, Silo, who holds the firm hand of the foundation, and Bonang, who just hit the nail on the head. You're asking about the legacy. That is exactly what is being ruined right now by the organization of Nelson Mandela, of which I am one of the leaders. The shattered spirit of our people that we see here today should come back. Because Nelson Mandela says all the time, you fall, but you are judged by the amount of times you rise each time you fall. We have fallen this week. And I must say upfront to all of you, Bonang, Gone, I want to say to Ndate Hadan, all of you sitting in this panel, we owe you and people of South Africa and the world an apology. We of the ANC. We have allowed, and in terms of this legacy thing, we've allowed the eternal contradictions and animosities within the ANC to spill out to society. We allowed these differences on policy and politics to spill out to the courts. Today, as we speak, a Secretary General is out. He had to step aside, correctly so. But the President and the Secretary General in court, the ANC of Nelson Mandela, fighting it out there. And this has divided people. So much so that, Hadang, the insurrectionists out there, the arsonists, the looters, all these people, all the wrong that has happened, they are playing on the stage which has been established by us, the ANC. We erected that stage. The ANC must come forward here and apologize to the people of South Africa. And on this 18th of July, apologize to the spirit of Nelson Mandela for what we have done. Because if the ANC had not conducted itself in a manner that it has been doing over the months and down the years since Polokwane, we could not have come this far, where a president is in jail, a Secretary General is out there. One president after Polokwane was thrown out, and right now people are calling for this president, this one, Cyril Ramaphosa, to go. That's the type of ANC. Therefore, what do you expect in society? The arsonist takes over, the insurrectionists. Therefore, to protect that legacy, it means that we fall back on Mandelaism. What would you do at this time? I was there with the death of Chris Hani, and I think we are referring to that Silo, where Madiba just held us like this. There is a need this time and I would suggest the president of this country, Cyril Ramaphosa, to call South Africans of different sectors, civic, business, and so on. Not a government-led thing, but he as an elected leader, call a kind of a convention. Let's talk about this. It's time for dialogue. Let's face ourselves. If we don't do that, by the way, this thing which is simmering, we can clean the malls and wash the blood and so on, but the bad blood is there and this thing will come back again. Therefore, it means that there's got to be a sit down. There's got to be a sit down. There's got to be a kind of indaba, an all-in indaba. I say all-in, so that nobody should be left out. And let's have a thorough discussion. There's no United Nations that will send peacekeeping forces here. There's no AU, there's no SADC. We're on our own. And this time, attend to and attack those things that inadvertently we did not deal with at CODESA. So it's time for us to be open. And that way, we can save not only the legacy of Nelson Mandela, but the legacy of our people and many others who have died almost today as we look for nothing. So there is a need for the president not just to visit, to clean up and so on. Call the nation and Indaba and all in. Don't leave anybody out so that we can deal with these arsonists and these insurrectionists. If you don't do that, they're going to play on the stage.
Kone, let's get your view here. So we've got communication at the heart of a solution as proposed by Tokyo. Let's call it Ndaba. Let's do it nationwide. Let's apologize to the spirit of Nelson Mandela. And I just want to add, Kone, before you come in, Linda Martinez, an essay via YouTube saying this initiative demonstrates the power of walking the talk. So Kone, to you.
Thanks, Bronwyn. I really wanted to pick up on what Tokyo was saying, that, you know, we must make sure that no one is left behind. One of Madiba's other values that really resonates with me is that of personal involvement. We cannot sit on the sidelines and be armchair commentators while our country is burning and things are falling apart. We have to use what we have, where we are, the networks that we have that are closest to us, and get involved. You know, so we need to make sure that people don't go looking for who's going to step up and help. Everyone must be scrambling to come forward and help. And it's that personal involvement that also gives people hope. Because what we are seeing at the moment as well is all of this pent-up rage, pent-up energy that is channeled in the wrong way. And we really need to, you know, beacons of light that are going to show people where is it that you can really add your efforts, your energies, your value, so that we can all, you know, contribute towards making this country of ours a better one.
Kind of great to point out that we shouldn't be armchair critics. As you say, we need to get involved personally. And Bonang, this comes to perhaps your time as CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, mobilizing the private sector, Tokyo referring to multi-stakeholder dialogues that are needed, that countrywide in Ndaba. Talk to me about business leadership right now, given the fact that you are very tight in those circles with the stature as former CEO of Business Leadership South Africa. Where are the private sector voices in this?
So the way we weave business as part of a broader stakeholder community, the social partners that we talk about in the context of Mandela's legacy. The best legacy for me is that he gave us this best constitution in the world as one of 4 pillars of liberal democracy, where the first is a free press, which we must never take for granted. The second is a constitutional democracy. The third is an independent civil society. And then last is the rule of law. All of them currently challenged by the looting. But look at the amazing leadership that he has. So he gives us this best constitution in the world, and the supremacy is vested in the constitution, not in the executives. And he gives us a single flag, black and white, young and old, male and female, where for the first time as South Africans, under the aegis of reconciliation, we have something in common. And he does magic. He takes the healing song, Nkosi Sikeleli Africa, a national anthem of 5 African countries, including Zambia, written by Enoch Sontonga. He takes the worst of apartheid, the stem, and he puts it there. And then he puts some few English words. But you see, the last line of these English words say, we shall live and strive for freedom in South Africa, our land, where 72% of the land is owned by white males. And yet we know that there is no possession like land. Lastly, you don't have to read the entire constitution, just the preamble. It starts by saying, we the people, my words, not the politicians. Secondly, it says, recognizing the past injustices. In the middle, it then both emboldens you and I, Bronwyn, to fix these past injustices. And then it ends with this hymn, Nkosi Sikeleli Africa. So for me, I think the biggest challenge we have to attend to is 27 years into democracy, just to accept that all of us, myself included, we have not collectively, individually, and severally eradicated the legacy of apartheid.
Hello, support courage where there is fear. Another statement famously made by Nelson Mandela. And right now, we've heard it repeatedly in discussion this evening. There is fear. There is fear in South Africa. How do we encourage that courage that we need to pick ourselves up after we've fallen, as Tokyo was saying, as Bonang has said, and really strive now to recover and to come back even stronger?
I think fear is something that we should always just accept is there. Madiba said he had fear many, many times. And in fact, there's a story that Joel Nichitanza once told us how Madiba was sitting in the plane with him and with many others, and the plane started shaking up so badly. And as they were sitting there, Madiba was just calmly looking at his paper, and the plane then lands. And he turns to everybody, says, "Oh, we were so worried, but you looked so calm." He said, you don't know what was going on inside. I was so afraid that we were going down. But I had to always just keep this, he said at some point, with the fear, he must fear with arrogance. And I think we must be a nation that then thinks, if we have had a leader such as Madiba being fearful, yet he then identified that he could be a leader at that point, it means that we mustn't always look out to others to lead us. This sense of looking for the big man to lead, the big man, the Messiah to come and save us. We must save ourselves. That's why I think it's important that the young man in Northwest, Ntate Molosangwe, who stopped the looting in Mahikeng, he must have feared that the crowd was going to go for him. Yet he thought, either I do it now or I don't. And if I don't do it now, it means that I'll be left with nothing. And I think if we are to do that, be courageous at the time that people are called on to be courageous, say the unsayable, do what Madiba used to then ask of my predecessor, Ahmad Dango. He called, and I go back to what Ntadese Khwale said, he called my predecessor to his office and he said, I hear that you've decided that the foundation should do dialogue work. I hope you understand that when you put two people in the room and they enjoy being there, that's not a dialogue, it's a chat. Real dialogue is if you put people in the room who don't want to even greet each other, who don't want to be there. And I think we need to create those spaces where fear is there, but it doesn't then occupy the space so much that it doesn't give us the courage to do the right thing.
So I'm going to encourage further comments and questions to come in via the Zoom chat function. I'll be monitoring that throughout the next 47 minutes. Just a couple of comments coming through. Absolutely, Selo. Fear is needed for action. And another comment from Ntumbi Zanele's iPhone saying a good measure of fear propels us to act. A question for the panelists: what measure would Mandela have for the youth who feel discouraged by happenings in the country of the past 15 years and who are leaving the country and taking their skills with them? Yolanda, I can see you're nodding there, and I'm going to get you to come in on that very, very somber point, is that we do see young people leaving South Africa, and those are skills that we need to make this country work.
Yeah, Ron, I mean, in order to make any country work, there are a couple of things that you need in addition to the rule of law and order, right? You do need a functioning and a healthy young population that is engaged and profitably engaged, if I can call it that. And right now, we are not seeing that. We're seeing more than 50% of our youth actually being unemployed. And people that are not gaining fully employed, actually more than just the fact that they don't get to actually enjoy the fruit of actually being able to provide for their families. That's the least of my worries. It is the discouragement that worries me. It is if you're sitting at a corner and you're watching other people every day getting into their cars, going to work, and you are unemployed. I mean, what happens to you on day 50? What happens to your courage, your sense of worth? at day 150, you lose it. And it is this kind of almost wearing down of who is self that is actually happening as a result of what we're seeing in South Africa. You know, we can deal with people that don't have money. We've got social grants that actually are helping people and so on. But the sense of meaningfulness is what is actually missing. The sense of worthiness is actually what's missing in our youth. The sense of ownership in terms of what we have in the country and what we could have in the future is what's missing in our youth today. So we need to come up with programs that actually gainfully engage the youth. A country like ours, in fact, like many others in Africa, to be honest, that actually has more youth than it has any other age group. You know, if we are not training the youth for the future, who are we training? We're training golden oldies like me for the future. No, we can't. We actually have to be investing deliberately into the younger people in order for them to actually take us forward. Innovation actually happens. I mean, there was research done that a lot of people that actually innovate great things actually innovated before they are 35, right? And if we actually are not investing in the youth that is before 35, then we're actually recycling old ideas over and over again. So for me, I mean, if I would ask for one thing and appeal for one thing from anyone who is listening, is how do we systematically and deliberately invest in the youth? A country without an invested youth in its outcomes, in its current conditions, in its current circumstances, is a country that showed us this week what the other reality could be.
And Yolanda, I think that speaks to the Mentorship Boardroom and the initiative that started today with the 67 mentees. Certainly the time that I spent with my mentee, it was so rewarding. And you know, many leaders out there say that time is the most valuable gift. So starting there, I think, again, kudos to the initiative. So many comments coming through and saying, congrats, Yolanda and team. This is exactly what is needed in South Africa right now. And Tokyo, I want to bring it back to you because Yolanda set out the power of your own mentorship and what you have achieved and how you have molded young people under you.
Well, talking about mentorship, I know these were private ones that we had, but I just want to throw in the name of Arnold Maleka. That's the man I was with today. I could have said later, it's a sad story. It's a great story. He's going blind. And he wants to open up a center to assist people who are in a similar condition like him, who may be totally blind. He's one-eyed. And I assured him that, and I want to declare this thing, I've been one-eyed all my life. My right eye doesn't work. And we spoke about Andrea Bocello, we spoke about Stevie Wonder, we spoke about Homer, we spoke about Galileo Galilei. And I said he must research about all blind people, especially the famous one, down history, Roosevelt, all those types of people. When you started discussing that, it was shocking how much, not shocking, but it was interesting. See how much he was motivated himself, not by me. But going back to establish a center, I said I'll help him. But I said to him, as a young man, I want to see you taking the initiative as you go blind. And maybe I'm going to blind one day, go blind because I'm using one eye. Never know what's going to happen. But I'll stay the course with you. There are lots of blind people out there with double eyes, especially amongst the youth, where youth unemployment is a time bomb. And I really mean a time bomb. Ndate Hatang, I've been trained in explosives in Moscow. A bomb is a bomb. And this one will explode in front of our faces. When you listen to commentators, editors, analysts, panelists, none of them predicted what we've just seen in this case. Everybody thought, no, hunky-dory. But there were people who were pointing a finger at this youth time bomb, the unemployment. So how do we deal with this? How do we give hope to this strong body of South Africans who are now in the majority, that there is the future for them in this country? How do we mentor? The first mentorship, and I just wanted to go to that point. Really, I feel strongly about that because I don't see another way out. When they see us cleaning a broken mall together, and we see some of them cleaning up some other infrastructure that has been attacked because of the hooliganism and criminality and this quasi-insurrection that people say, whatever this thing was, we should rise above those cleaning spots that did. The people want to see you and I together. The people don't want the chaos that they are seeing in parliament. That's not mentorship, where we're throwing things at one another. The people don't want to see the threats that they are seeing one against the other in the governing party, the African National Congress. So I go back. The first mentorship is to give hope to the people that the leadership is looking at the question of how to heal the divisions that have been happening amongst our ranks. And by leadership, I'm not talking leadership of the ANC. I'm talking about, that's why I said it should be an all-in. That's the first part. Coming to what Mohali had said, from the business side, we need to come back to the table. There are certain incomplete, or can I say, there's unfinished business coming out of CODESA. CODESA, we were part of it. I was there. We're rushing shortly after the shooting of Chris Hani. We wanted the election date and we wanted it right now. It was the very first thing we had to conclude that thing, create provinces and establish a government and prepare for the elections and so on. But there are certain fundamental things that were not concluded, particularly around ownership of this country, starting with land, starting with a BEE and so on. The BEE that was then done, and I was part of it, was not a great thing. It has not been a success. So we've got to go back, give hope to the future, bring them. When I said all in, I'm also talking about Bonang, you're also the chancellor of the varsity. Students were at our throats. I'm also with you on the board of the foundation of vets. That's where Bonang and us and myself meet from time to time. All those people were a dagger's draw. Society was broken. You know, we should have seen it coming. We should have seen it. There's the former leader of the opposition, I've never quoted him, who once said to Jacob Zuma, "You are a broken man. And this is a broken country." You know, the echoes of those things which are here today. Here we are today with a country that has fallen. We've got to pick it up. So people must see us. The people have been divided, coming together, not a CODESA, a great constitution, great foundation documents, the judiciary and so on, but they want to see us coming together. Once you do it at that level, then you close the door away from the insurrectionists, then you give hope. Then the whole question of working with business for job creation, for all type of, it will come at that table. Then you can deal with what I called again, the unfinished business of CODESA.
So
without looking at the question of resources, it just pay time. We'll be wasting time analyzing, doing all sorts of things. We must take this bull by the horns, and it must be tomorrow. When I refer to the president, it's not Mr. Ramaphosa. I'm not putting him up there because we need one leader. This thing of the leader must step forward, it doesn't work. We don't need Hitler or that type of thing. We need a Democrat. I'm pointing at him because already he is the first citizen as elected. I'm not talking government because no, the government has failed. You know, you have seen what has happened. The government has failed. The ANC has failed this man. So I'm saying, let's find a way. He is elected. Therefore, somebody must call us and somebody who's got to have authority and a bit of a voice and resources by calling business and so on. So that this all-in thing, it must start immediately. Right now, we're just...
And I think I'm going to pick up there, Tokyo, on what you were saying, hope element, because again, one of Madiba's mantras is inspire hope where there is despair. You've said it, not in exactly the same words, but you've made hope a very important tenet of the future of South Africa. And Bonang, you are very well placed as Chancellor of the Orange Free State University, as Tokyo was saying, to really give us a sense of what you are seeing from the youth that are under your charge.
So one of the gifts Madiba gives us is this notion that our lives begin to end when we are silent about things that genuinely matter. So at the University of the Free State, we are driving very hard this notion of an inclusive academic excellence, of decolonizing the curriculum, of giving public ownership to these institutions, of protecting the freedom of speech. He also reminds us that when a child is not embraced by a village, that child will burn the village down in order to feel its warmth. He ends by saying, in the interest of time, when the fisherwomen can't go out to sea for whatever reason, they repair their nets. We have been in national lockdown for 478 days. We can't be normal. So how does this manifest? We see inequality widening, racism at an all-time high. Black youth are roaming the streets hopelessly. Public education has collapsed. Public healthcare continues to fail the poor and the vulnerable. And lawlessness has become an epidemic. When a country is sitting at 32.5% unemployment rate with a narrow ILO definition, effectively 42% of the adult population not at work. Youth unemployment is north of 60%. The elements that were present during the Arab Spring are here, imminent, present, and urgent.
Kone, what are you doing as the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund to inspire hope over despair? And I'm going to start building to the solution here, because I'm cognizant that we have about 20 minutes left of this discussion. And I think we would be doing a huge injustice if we don't build to a solution and really look to creating that hope with the conversation that we are having here this evening. Kone.
Thank you, Bronwyn. So, you know, one of my personal favorite quotable quotes by Madiba is, "May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears." And really, this for me says that every time I have to make a decision or move forward, I have to ask myself, what is the motivator? What am I hoping for? What is the outcome that I'd like to see? And so, you know, at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, one of our primary objectives is to raise the voice of the young people. In the last 2 months, we have been recruiting for our program called Ifengbacha, which is a program that is aimed at young people between the ages of 18 and 22. Ifengbacha means give it to the youth. And really, we are saying to these young people, examine the environment that you live in. What is happening? What are the pain points that are happening there? How do you become a catalyst for change? How do we help you become part of the solution that is grown within that environment? But we give you the capacity to grow yourself as a leader, as well as whatever resources, whether they are financial, whether they are certain networks and connections that you need to make, but to grow your own solutions that you will do with your own community. And really, this is saying to people, be active, take the initiative, because there is no knight in shining armor that is coming to save you. We have to save ourselves, and we have to let the young people know that they can do it. Their dreams are valid, their choices and opinions are valid, and let's help with the experience that we have, craft the solutions so that they can then be sustainable and they can be able to operationalize them.
Another statement coming through on the chat function: education is the most powerful weapon that can be used to change the world. And this, of course, we know a very famous quote from Nelson Mandela. Selo, it comes to you on what is at the heart of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And again, if I look at the mentorship sessions that have taken place today, that is education. That is looking to getting out of the armchair, as Kone said earlier, and really making a difference, an individual difference?
Thank you very much, Bronwyn. I think it's important that we again emphasize that if democracy had to work, it must work for its people and not eat its children. In other words, the education system that we are currently implementing, it's eating its children's future. We have to reckon with that fact, that for as long as we have that kind of education system that doesn't help to build the future that we dream of, we're going nowhere. On the 25th anniversary of the South African Constitution, the one that Ntate Bonang Mohale reminds us is the most progressive. It must be seen to be serving. The Constitution must be seen to be serving its people. That's why some of the work that we do around early childhood development is precisely about ensuring that it starts there, that you don't obsess over matric and also post-matric education, not having thought about the basics. Can they read and write? Can they at least get into basic education having been prepared? And I think until such time that we reach that point, that we reckon that that unfinished business that Ntate Sogwale is speaking about, that people like Ntate Dumisani, Terry Bell have been talking about, we are going nowhere until we fix our education system so that it doesn't eat its children. And I think it's the most significant thing, Bronwyn, if I may, it starts with the leader as a teacher. Madiba says, it doesn't matter what station you are at, make yourself proud. If you are changing the sheets, do it so well that it means that you are helping the patients to get better. So do it well from wherever you are stationed. Be a leader in that station.
I want to draw here from two comments and put them together, Yolanda, as we come to you. So Nolovuyo Hobana saying, and just reiterating what Bonang was saying, when a child is not embraced by a village, he burns down the village in order to feel its warmth. And Nolovuyo there saying, sure, I felt that. It evokes so much emotion. And that's followed by Ntombi Zanele, who says, how do we begin to embrace that child into the cradle of the village? So I'm going to put that as a segue to you, Yolanda.
Thanks, Bronwyn. I guess, the first thing that we need to start thinking about is how do we actually democratize access, right? Access to information, access to opportunity, access to education, and so on, right? Because at this point in time, one of the key bottlenecks, every time you speak to young people, every time you speak to middle-aged people, they'll tell you that we are not having enough opportunity presented to us in order to grow, in order to demonstrate that we can, in order for us to have 5 years experience, 10 years experience on our CVs. We get excluded from a lot of the opportunities because we don't know people. And this sort of exclusionist kind of mindset didn't happen by its own. It actually was created. Whether it was created intentionally or unintentionally, that's something that we're going to have to park to the books of history to actually write about. However, right now we have an opportunity to say, how do we intentionally create the stage that we want in order for everyone to be included? We cannot live in a world, I think it was Silo who was saying that the education outcomes are putrid. Yes, they are. They are, because we have grade 5 children, our children doing maths papers, the international maths papers, and 70% of them failing. And then if you look at the teachers that are setting grade 6 papers, 60% of them are failing the very maths papers that they are actually setting for the children. So when we have that kind of putrid outcomes, we actually have to start holding people accountable. We actually have to start by saying, what is the stage that we are looking for? If we are not on the stage of excellence, we actually are going to fall by the wayside with the outcomes of that we are kind of seeing today, the unintentional outcomes, where we have a pass mark that is somewhere between 20 and 30%. That is no pass mark. That is not something we should be celebrating in our children. If my child actually came in today and said, Mama, I passed and I got 30%, there is no way I would be able to say, well done, my child. that false sense of achievement to that child, they grow up with it. They grow up with believing that being subpar is good enough. When we pat the children in the back for doing things that they should be doing, we are not encouraging the kind of outcomes that we are looking for. Therefore, what I'm saying is, let's create the stage of excellence, and deliberately so that we can start slowly walking towards the kind of outcomes that we are looking for. Let us be very accountable. I mean, I went to Rwanda and spent some time with some of the ministers in Rwanda. Each and every one of the ministers there, at the back of their mind, are really, really scared to be called out when the performance appraisals are done, because they're done publicly. Each and every one actually wants to be able to say, I delivered X, Y, and Z to my constituency. I delivered that is new to this nation. That sense of lack of expectation in us is what is actually going to bring us down, I think, as a nation. Let us, through something like the Mentorship Boardroom, let us, through other platforms, this is not the only one. This is just but one. Let us lift the game. Let us inspire hope. Let us inspire expectation. Expectation. It is the child that is expected to do well that ultimately does well. When your parents expect you to be a doctor, you are likely to actually exceed their expectations. So it is that stage that I think we should start building in this country.
And Yolanda, I just want to add to your point, having spent some time in Rwanda as well, and with, I know you engaged with the MTN Rwanda listing with Minister Paula Ingabire, Minister of ICT and Innovation, and exactly that. The government is run as if it's a boardroom, and every single minister is held accountable, and the metrics are measurable. And we see that from Minister Ingabire, ICT, through to Minister of Infrastructure, Minister Clever Gatete. So the excellence is set, there is a blueprint, and it is working in Rwanda, which is one of the highest growing economies on the African continent, and which has come from 1994, which was obviously the Rwandan genocide, to now one of the most, the safest, the cleanest, and certainly to one of the most solid economies on the African continent. So just to pull out that as an example, I just want to say here, Yolanda coming in from Kutala Stokwe, so true, Yolanda, excellence is lacking. Democratizing access, very, very true. Yolanda, that coming from Vumi Msweli. And then I think the other really, really important point that we need to touch on here is how, as you say, we move to this level of excellence. And Tokyo, I'm going to bring you back in. How do we get from where we are today, this Sunday evening, on July the 18th of 2021, and where we find ourselves, to the stage of excellence that Yolanda refers to? And I'm mindful, ladies and gents, that we have just 13 minutes left of our conversation. So I really want us to build to the solutions, to go back to the topic that we have been entrusted with today, which is Mandela leadership philosophies in modern times. And I want to put those modern times to South Africa, July the 8th, 2020. Tokyo, I'm going to get you to come in here.
Yes, I was just killing a phone, which is here next to me. Sadly, there are no quick fixes. We can't leave this panel with a feel good that, you know, what we have said will solve problems on Monday morning or by the end of this year. The problem, the societal problem, is far more serious than that. I'm not saying that we're taking this thing lightly. One of the cardinal fundamental problems, by the way, I just wanted to say around the question of the children, the schools, I wanted to comment about it, in the village. I learned from Hillary Clinton, when she was the first lady. She visited South Africa, and we took her to Robben Island with Madiba, and there was a banquet held for her and other people there. And that's when she had just done her book, It Takes a Village to Bring Up a Child. Because if the village is not there, and I'm adding my own words, you are growing up a criminal. This child cannot associate. That's why Mahali, Bonang, you are saying, then the child will burn the village in order to feel its warmth, if it's not there to give him warmth. So when we start going forward, I'm back at that all in. A lot is broken in this country, in the economy, in politics, party politics, parliament, and so on. And some of the suggested proposals we are making here make a lot of sense, but they will be difficult to implement until you fix the big things. I want to come to the electoral politics of this country. The time has come, as part of that all-in Daba, for us to allow people to choose their own leaders. None of you talking so well here, let me tell you, will ever be elected in certain political parties because you can't go to parliament, you can't go into government because you depend on, in the ANC, it's about 34,000 people who will elect you. And those people choose our ministers, they choose our parliamentarians, they choose our president. There's no way, we can never get out of this rut until the electoral system of this country, I know it's a futuristic one, but it's not a difficult one. This all-in thing we'll have to discuss as one of the things, how we structure the political structures of this country, parliament, political parties, how the president is chosen, how ministers are set up and so on. Because as long as we leave this thing being the preserve of a political party, they do their own thing in that corner there, then get to parliament and they run all of us. And we'll come here complaining about children, about all sorts of things. It will be a repetition. That fundamentally must change because it's one of the things that we agreed about at CODESA very quickly. So the question of the electoral system must change because it refers to representativity in the country. We'll be wasting our time here when tomorrow morning people are choosing themselves out there in the street and they do what they like. It'll just be talk. And they'll come back with guns against us and so on. So that must change. Once you have changed those fundamentals, and it's just an agreement that the electoral system has got to change from what it has been to what it needs to be more representative for the people. You have that in place, a lot of things will loosen up. Then it comes to the budget of the country. Because the budget is a key instrument of governance anyway. We can talk the whole day here, but if you don't control that budget, there's no way you're going. Well, now you know that foreign investors, and Moody's has already indicated that, although the markets did not shake very much, but the forecast about South Africa as a result of what happened over this last week is terrible. So as long as they see this government run by people who will end up with Zondo, then there's no way out for us. We've got to change the causalities of problems which led to Zondo, which led to the breakup of society. And I'm saying that it's not an easy answer, but it's the place of finding the answer is there. And all in, and we change the system here in the country. I don't have short-term solutions. I've got medium to long-term.
Exactly, and there are no short-term solutions. So I don't want to drive an unrealistic agenda for 10 minutes because we're certainly not going to solve South Africa's enormous problems at this juncture. But I do want us to inspire hope where there's despair, to inspire courage where there is fear. And I think that's what you're doing right now, is saying that there are fundamental changes that we need to make as South Africans in a multi-stakeholder environment to drive to a future that we can be proud of and build from here. So as I turn and Tokyo, yes, go ahead.
I just want, and one of the things here, futuristic, long-term ones, not so long-term, but here, people must see us standing together as a nation after what broke up last week. They must see us. We must be there in the streets and give them hope that we're together. Then we can come to the big Indaba, but people must see us.
And that's beautiful because it goes to foster agreement where there is conflict. And that is one of Madiba's fundamental statements. What he is known for is foster agreement where there is conflict. So thank you for that, Tokyo. I'm going to come back to you for closing comments. But Bonang, if we leverage off those tenets of creating hope, of inspiring courage, of fostering agreement, give me your sense now as we move into the final stages of this discussion. I know we need to be realistic. We are not going to solve South Africa's problems tonight on this stage in 10 minutes.
I take a lot of comfort in the fifth State of the Nation address by the sitting president when he distilled the four foremost overarching principles to overcome the coronavirus pandemic, to accelerate our economic growth and to implement the socio-economic reforms in order to create sustainable jobs and deliver this notion of an inclusive growth. Lastly, he says we need to defeat state capture and deliver and create a capable state. So I think we can only achieve that when we can send these treasonous people in the last 2 weeks to jail together with the top state capture miscreants to jail. We must roll out vaccines as a matter of urgency. We need to reduce government debt. We must reduce public sector wage bill, and we must fix our more than 740 state-owned enterprises and state-owned companies. And then lastly, we have to take education seriously, because when one steadily burns the midnight oil, one gains access to the domain of knowledge and wisdom. Educated people render it impossible to be used by politicians.
Kone, let's get you to come in here.
I think there's a lot, I agree with a lot that Wenang has said. What I would like to add is that we need to create safe spaces and a safe environment for our children. We cannot be a country that has children that live in fear. One of the unfortunate repercussions of the lockdowns that we have seen as a result of the coronavirus is the fact that children have then had to be locked down with perpetrators and abusers. And children have felt all the more vulnerable with food insecurity, with the uncertainty that is happening with the circumstances, whether it is school or not. We've seen bullying at an all-time high because children don't have role models that show them that for you to be able to, agree or not agree with someone, you don't slap them, you don't hit them in the manner that they do. So we need to create safe spaces for our children so that they can grow up confident, so that they can be the embodiment of this self-esteem and this great future that we want to have. And, the last one that I want to come back to is that self-involvement. So it starts with you. For me to be able to go on and speak about it, it starts with me. Thank you.
Selo, it starts with you.
Starts with you, indeed. I think it, one of the things that we mentioned earlier on about excellence over mediocrity. I still mourn the fact that whenever you were showing your hand to say, actually, we're going the wrong way, you were called names. If we start with us not calling people clever blacks, for example, because that's a way of silencing excellence. It starts with us not thinking that privatizing everything is the way to go, because it's not. If you look at municipalities, one of the reasons most of the municipalities are not working is because some of the services have been privatized, and looters are then destroying what's there instead of trying to then build our future. The problem of, I was talking to Professor Njabulo Ndebele earlier on, the chairman of our board, and we were talking about how this thing of starting with us, it starts with communities, a street committee, us going back to the basics. You'll remember that when democracy came, we demolished all those structures that were actually holding the nation together in terms of a street committee. Currently, the problems that we had, the CPF, played a huge role. And I think if we are to think with a sense of saying liberating, an army can liberate nations, but only you can liberate yourself. So to the young people, you can liberate yourself from poverty and inequality that we have at the moment by at least showing those who are in front of you the way to go.
Yolanda, we're almost at our 67 minutes. We've got 2 minutes to go. I'd like to go to you, and I would like you to answer a question that has been asked repeatedly on the platform tonight is please don't let this be the end. Is this going to be a sustainable initiative? And then from you, I'm going to Tokyo to close our session this evening.
Thank you, Bronwyn. No, this is not the end. Maybe this is the right time to talk a little bit about the Mentorship Boardroom. Mentorship Boardroom is an initiative that really is trying to provide a platform for people that are trailblazers, the people that are the beacons in our society, to actually provide time and their effort and their wisdom, collective wisdom really of society, to people that still need that kind of collective wisdom. So the mentors and the mentees. And today we got to experience that. And the idea behind the Mentorship Boardroom is actually to touch 1 million lives over the next 10 years through mentorship. By so doing, really build the next level of leaders in our country that are not just motivated and inspired, but that aspire to excellence, that aspire to actually go beyond the kind of things that the current leaders, including the people on this platform, have been able to achieve. So that's the idea. That's the big idea behind the Mentorship Boardroom. So 67 minutes of mentorship is one of the initiatives. We are having another initiative in March in South Africa for specifically Women's Month, because Women's Month in South Africa is different to the rest of the world. And then in March next year, we're actually having the International Women's Month. So this is a Pan-African initiative for everyone in Africa, and it's a global leadership. Today, we spoke to people across the board from the Netherlands. I was speaking to someone who's a South African in Netherlands. Some people were actually mentoring people in Lesotho, and some people were mentoring people in Botswana, and everyone was just across the footprint. So from that perspective, that's what we're trying to do. So at the heart of it, what is the Mentorship Boardroom about? It really is about planting seeds. Today is about planting seeds. We are not saying that we're paying it forward. We're planting seeds, because seeds actually generate the next generation of fruits, okay, and the next generation of fruit after that. So we are planting seeds and we are irrigating the mind, as Tokyo would remind me. Today, the Mentorship Boardroom is just irrigating the mind, is giving that next level of inspiration and saying, let us never be caught again with the grass dry, that any spark can actually do what it did in the last week. So let us make sure that we are always fertile in terms of what we see, read, and consume for ourselves. And lastly, is that it's about tilling the soil. As a farmer, I'm a little farmer, but there's a lot of people that are big farmers. But what I know for sure is that in terms of farming, if you want to do real yield management, you start off and saying, I only have this limited piece of land. The only way I can make it produce more each time I do something on it is if I till it better. Each time you till it better, it actually produces even more outcomes with the limited size of land that you have. So that's what the Mentorship Boardroom is about, is actually living the principle that a mind once switched to a new idea will never return to its original shape. And this Mentorship Boardroom session, the roundtable, and the mentee kind of session today, we are hoping that we have stretched the mind to new ideas such that they are never satisfied with what we had yesterday, that the spirit of excellence will actually burn inside of all of us, and all of us want to actually put out there a new stage on which to play on that actually only demands the best version of ourselves and that of humanity. Thank you very much.
So, a beautiful closing from Yolanda Kuba there. I think she summed it up. She's inspired us. And she talked about the fact that you told her that it was about irrigating the mind. I'm going to ask you to follow on what Yolanda has said to close us out on the session.
Well, I said to Yolanda, it's more than massaging the heart. It's also about irrigating the mind. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to speak about violence as a dangerous instrument when you weaponize politics. I hope at another time we'll find to do that. But for me, I think I would like to say that on behalf of the panel, we know is one of the things, Madiba is about freedom versus oppression, is about a united society versus a broken one, is about democracy and the rule of law versus the things that we've been seeing here. It's about non-racialism. We should have spent time on this one because our nation is premised upon this basic principle of who we are, because of the way God has made us. It's about non-sexism, patriarchy. We know what this has done. The women must come very much on board. And of course, it's about building a prosperous society. So I can only quote Madiba in saying the following. He says, a leader, talking about leadership, which is the philosophy of Nelson Mandela. A leader uses every issue, no matter how serious and sensitive, to ensure that at the end of the debate, we should emerge stronger and more united than ever. I know you like this one, Sello. Let's not be despondent. Madiba says, it always seems impossible until it is done.
It always seems impossible until it is done. Thank you very much, Tokia Sehwale, Yolanda Kuba, Selo Hatang, Kone Gugushe, and Bonang Mahale. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you this evening on the Roundtable. And thank you very, very much, Yolanda Kuba, for the initiative, the Mentorship Boardroom, which I believe will change many, many lives for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it.